Hey everyone, welcome to Chris. My name is Chris, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about Uncut Gems. It is a fan favorite of 2019, especially because it was Adam Sandler in probably the most serious acting role of his life. I know some of you, I say that, and some of you might be going, Reign Over Me. Have you seen Reign Over Me? I actually saw Reign Over Me in the movie theaters back in like 2007 when it came out, which blew my mind. That was Adam Sandler. I'm not going to ruin the twist, but he was a grief stricken man and plays a recluse, a shut in, and you see all these layers of his grief kind of be undone over the course of the movie. Awesome performance, but it was also he was kind of the supporting role or more of a mysterious figure. So with him being the main focus of the camera the whole time in this movie, much more responsibility on his shoulders. And I think it was probably Reign Over Me wasn't necessarily that popular of a movie, though it had a great Pearl Jam song accompanying it. And then you have something like Click, which, if you can watch the movie Click and not cry, you probably have to have something worked on. Your emotions are blocked up. Like Click was such a sad movie, but that's more the plot overall. It's not a huge acting performance from Sandler. He just has this moment that really gets you. But for this Uncut Gems, the main conversation point, the main talking point was the performance that Sandler put in. I didn't know what to expect. I just watched it like last week, and there's been so much hype about the movie heading into Oscar season, coming out of the Oscar season, and people really were into this film. So watching it, I wasn't sure because sometimes you hear the hype of a movie so much that it can make it less great when you finally see it. And I do think that overall this lived up to the hype for me. I did think if there was a major complaint that it didn't have a big moment, right? There wasn't that final aspect where I was just like, oh shit, it went there. It went there. And that's kind of where I wanted it to go. It stayed in I'm thinking about it in terms of sound waves, right? Instead of having this huge crescendo, it just kind of stayed in the sound, like the tense and intense sound wave that it had this whole time. And the intensity of this movie, I think, is really the gripping part about it. There's so much tension, there's so much stress built up, and the stress is fascinating. And a lot of that has to do with Howard, the main character, because he's really caught in a storm of his own making. So on the one hand, you have the mob that is clearly following him around, like the guys that he owes money to. He struggles to pay off gambling debts, including the 100,000 he owes to his loan shark brother-in-law. So $100,000 is a lot of money to pay off, but Howard's successful, right? That's the thing that's so kind of crazy about the movie, and maybe one of the more subtle aspects about why it kind of takes you by the throat and doesn't let go. It's because Howard clearly can get things done. He's not a schlub or a everyman that gets caught up in a bad situation and like, what is he gonna do against all odds? Howard has a pretty sweet life. Uh, he married a hot woman, had a family. His business is clearly successful. He has money. He has a nice house outside the city. He has enough for an apartment in the city. He has his mistress or girlfriend, I guess, since he and his wife are going to get divorced at a point. So it's okay for him to have his mistress, which, what is it, Julia? Yeah, Julia. Julia. In the apartment, but he's affording this apartment. He's rolling with people. Like, it seems like he does well for himself. So the fact that he has any gambling debts whatsoever is a sign of his own weaknesses and makes him a bit more of an anti-hero, right? So you're rooting for him because he does have a bit of a charm about him, and because you can tell he's so emotional about this. Like, there's a rawness to how he's feeling and kind of the desperation to how he's feeling. The movie actually, for all you Always Sunny in Philadelphia fans, if you've ever seen the episode Charlie Work, that's what this reminds me of. It's this episode where the health inspector, is going to come to Patty's pub, and it's filmed in the style of Birdman, where it's just the one camera shot following Charlie around as he tries to get the bar to pass the inspection code. But there's all this chaos that keeps happening as the rest of the gang keeps creating problems. So Charlie's just hurdling problem after problem after problem, walking the inspector through what's going to happen and getting the passing grade, right? But there's such an intensity and stress to that whole episode. And it's kind of like this, because Howard is very capable of getting out of this situation, but he's also very capable of continuing the situation to keep going. So you're really torn about him, because on the one hand, he's struggling with something, and because that struggle becomes so real and so stressful, just our basic human instinct is to have compassion for this person. And there's nothing that he really does to anybody else that makes him shitty. But on the other hand, it's his gambling debts, and he clearly has a gambling problem. And the fact that he's still in this situation is frustrating. Like, you keep getting frustrated with him. Like, Howard, stop it. Like, just stop it. Stop betting the money. Just give the money to these guys and keep giving them money. You could have been out of this situation long ago, but that's not his personality, right? So he's a very frustrating character to engage with, because he's capable and foolish all at once, and can be that way moment to moment, scene by scene. And then you have people also just fucking with him, right? The stone, the uncut gems, means so much to him when he gets it. This is going to be his ticket. This is going to solve all of his issues. He really thinks he's going to get $1 million for this thing and be set. And when Kevin Garnett takes it, like when he's kind of bullied into giving it to Kevin Garnett, and Kevin Garnett's not bringing it, it's so frustrating, so terrifying. Like, you really feel for the guy and how upset he is. It made me upset. Just like, give him the damn stones back. Is it that hard? They're not yours, Garnett. They're not yours. And that's maybe one of the things that's kind of a bit tragic about this, because he does think it's going to be $1 million, but at auction he only gets 190, and I think he ends up selling it to Garnett for 175, with some money taken out due to what goes wrong at the auction. Maybe he would have gotten more had they not revised the pricing due to him kind of fucking around with the auction house, since Garnett wouldn't give him back the stones. It's one of those things, had the stones gotten there on time, had Garnett never had any interaction with them, would Howard have gotten all the money that he ever hoped for? So there is this element of Howard was fine if everything would have gone well, but because of Kevin Garnett, because of Demaney, Lakeith Stanfield's character, things do go south. So there was something out of control for Howard, which makes it a bit more of a tragedy. But man, when you get to him selling it and thinking, okay, he can just pay his debts, move on, things can be good, and he goes and he gambles again, it's frustrating. Oh, don't you just want to scream at him? You just want to take Howard and be like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Howie, my man. Knock it off. But he can't, because he's just not wired to stop. So, man, the interesting thing, too, about, I guess, the basketball game, we have the 3 games that kind of make the backbone of the plot, really. If you're looking for something that the movie's structured around, you have the first game where Garnett has the stones and cleans up, and that's a game that he initially bets on. And there's that, again, tragic twist of he would have won his bets and things would have gone great, except for the fact that his brother-in-law, who he owes the money to, canceled the bet. And fuck, there goes all this money that he would have won. Shit. Like, that's going to happen again. And then you see what happens to Garnett in game 2 when he doesn't have the stones. He has a shitty game. And then so for game 3, when he has the stones back and Howard makes the bet again, the same bet that he made in the game one. It seems so stupid. And that's because the Safdie brothers knew that we expect that, right? When you have it succeed the first time and he tries to do it again, like, who gets that bet twice and wins twice? That's like getting two winning lottery tickets. You just, too rare. No, not going to happen. So we're expecting it to fail, right? And that's where a lot of the tension in that final scene comes from, is that as the game goes on and Howard has the loan shark guys locked in between the two doors out of the jewelry store, we're just thinking, this is going to go wrong, this is going to go wrong, this is going to go wrong, and then it doesn't. It goes right. Howard wins. He's successful. He's going to be able to pay back. It's great. But then the dude, I don't know, what's the character's name? Phil and Nico from the Man Trap, but Phil enraged shoots him dead. So Phil's the jackass. They do it subtly through the movie. I think if you go back and watch the movie a second time, you can see how much Phil just hates Howard. Like, absolutely hates Howard. So after being locked in this room for so long against his will, that's kind of emasculating. And especially seeing somebody like Howard, who Phil obviously has no respect for whatsoever, succeed in this way, that's pretty infuriating to somebody like Philip, I do imagine. So if you're wondering why Phil ends up just shooting Howard, because he hates Howard, loathes Howard, couldn't wait to shoot Howard, was hoping to be able to shoot Howard the whole time. But there's the other element too of like, what an easy way to get a ton of money. Like, he and Nico are just able to kill Amo. They're able to kill Howard and take all the jewelry, right? But they also know that Julia's going to be coming back with the money. I don't know if they end up taking the money from her, but they definitely know where she's going to be and how much money she's going to have. So that kind of sucks for Howard. I mean, he's dead at the end, but it's just some petty guys that are in some shits and see an opportunity and they take it. And that's kind of the bad part about being in the underbelly of crime stuff in New York City. Poor Howard. And so that's kind of the tragedy and the complicated character of Howard. So much in this movie is stuff that is his own doing, but then so much of it is stuff outside of his control. And that creates this interesting duality of, is it his fault or not, right? Is he a victim, or did he get what he not deserved? That's probably too harsh, but is he to blame for what happened, right? I'm sure there are going to be people that take the stance of like, no, nobody's to blame for being murdered, right? But on the other hand, just like, he was really testing his luck and just escalating and escalating and escalating to the point where, like, yeah, that's pretty dangerous. And I just realized in the YouTube video that my logo was getting kind of overlooked there. So that movie, it gives you a lot to really think about in terms of Howard's character, and really is a great showcase of how to build tension continuously from start to finish and just make the audience feel a heap of stress. The interesting thing that I don't really know how I feel about it, if I have collected thoughts on it yet, is the metaphysical nature or subplot of the film, or if there is a metaphysical theme. So that would come from the fact that in the opening shots of the movie, we see the Ethiopian Jewish miners find this rare black opal. And we travel into the gems and through them into this micro world that's really rich and beautiful. And we transition from this beautiful, surreal world within the gems to Howard's body. We're inside him as he's getting a probe of his colon, right? Which it takes you from this natural beauty to something that's like naturally ugly. And there's maybe a joke about being in a cave in both situations, right? um, but is that just clever filmmaking and a stylistic way to transition between scenes, or is there something deeper there? That's what I haven't been able to figure out yet. Oh, it gets rough because when you look at the end of the movie, right, we obviously go back and it reverses the process a little bit as we enter the bullet wound in Howard's face and go into the body. And then from the body, we head into more of the world of the jewels again, or the world of the opal again. Um, so you have that initial transition from opal to body, and then the ending transition from body into opal, or just the galaxy universe kind of thing. Um, Again, is there meaning there? Not quite sure. There does seem to be something to the opal, right? Kevin Garnett says he feels it, that there's this energy and this power to it that's going to make him play better. It infuses him and empowers him, which is why he's able to have those two amazing games that he has that end up having Howard win. So is there some kind of connection with these stones? Is there something about Howard too that's supposed to look at his luck? I mean, we do go inside of him from the stones, and the stones have this magic power. Howard seems to have this luck that is surreal when it comes to betting on these games that the opals are involved in. I don't know if we're supposed to read something more there or not, just because the middle portion doesn't necessarily have that many inroads, at least on first viewing, that I could think of. But it does seem that there are a few inroads just in terms of maybe there is something more thematic about the connection between these gems and Howard, or these gems and people, or the nature of what makes these gems special and the nature of what makes people special. You could probably start to find some kind of theories or arguments for that, but I don't know if I have any good ones at the moment. But I will, as I think about it and think through it, come back to this topic if there's something that I think warrants further discussion, and just release a second Uncut Gems episode. But if you have any theories on the matter, you can leave a comment on the YouTube video, or if you want to send an email, it's newschoolchris@gmail.com. You can also hit me up at Kanye Podcast on Twitter, or at NewSchoolChris on Twitter, which I'm not quite as active on yet, but I'll get there. I'll get there. If you have any thoughts, questions on the movie, or any requests for what you want me to cover next in terms of movies, TV shows, books, or albums, then hit me up. Until next time, I'm Chris, and this has been Chris.